This lesson is create a custom compare validation class in C#. The objectives for this lesson are to learn to create your own compare type of attribute. We're going to do that by comparing two different property values to one another. Let's start out by creating a custom validator class that checks two date property values. Right mouse click on the validation classes folder and add a class called compare date less than attribute. Now this one's going to look very similar to the other validation attribute classes we've created. As you can see, the public class compare date less than attribute inherits from validation attribute. Now we're passing in a string, which is the property name to compare, just like the regular compare where you add like password to the name there. We need that property name to compare because we're going to use that property name. We override the isValid, passing in the object value and the validation context. Check to make sure the value is not equal to null. We then get the value entered. It's a date time. We're then going to use a little bit of reflection here. So we're doing the validation context.object type. So that's the type name of whatever it is, like product, for instance. And then we do a get property and we pass in the name of that property, and that gives us back a property info object. What you can do with that property info object using reflection is a get value, and you pass in the object instance to actually get the value that is in that property to compare right now, like that password field, for instance. That gives us back that value. Check to make sure that value is not equal to null, and then we're going to perform the comparison by checking the current value in the current field to see if it's greater than casting the compare property value to a date time. Remember, the name of this is compare date less than attribute. So if the current value is greater than the one we're trying to compare to, we're going to return a new validation result, passing in whatever error message is passed down. Now, I could have also set a default error message here, but you get the idea. So let's go over to the product class now, locate our cell start date. Because the thing is, we want to compare and make sure that that selling start date is less than the ending sell date. Otherwise, that wouldn't make sense, would it? I mean, you can't have a start date that's greater than the end date. So you can see on line 40, compare date less than name of sell end date. So it's going to that property. That's the one we're comparing to. That's the name that's getting passed in. So let's now go over to our program.cs. Let's replace what's here. And this time, take a look at the cell start date. It's datetime.today. The cell end date is datetime.today.addDays -1. So that's going to fail. Well, let's do this. Let's go ahead and set a breakpoint right in here and watch this happen. So let's run this. So the value is not null. So we grab the current value. That's today's date. We then use reflection to get the property info. The property info is looking at that cell end date property. The VC object instance, as you can see, is the actual product object that we have. And you can see the cell end date here is 1/15/2024, and that's less than the cell start date. So we're going to get that value in compare now. So if we check, is the current value greater than the compare value? It sure is. So we're going to now return that error message. The start selling date must be less than the end selling date. There we go. We run this, and there is the message. And just to give you one more sample, let's create a custom validator class that compares two numeric property values. Right mouse click on the validation classes folder. Let's add a new class called compare decimal less than attribute. And the code in this is going to look very similar to the date one we did. We're still going to be passing in the string of the property name that we're going to compare. If we look at the isValid method, we check to make sure the value is not equal to null. This time when we get that value, we're getting it as a decimal. And once again, I haven't put a lot of error handling into here. You'll want to beef these up. I'm using reflection to get the actual property, putting that into a property info object. I then get the value in that other property by calling that getValue method on the object instance. That gives us the object to compare. We then check to see if the current value is greater than the decimal casted compare value, and if it is, we're going to return whatever error message. So let's open up our product class again, and inside of here we have the standard cost and we have the list price. Now, if on this standard cost, we want to make sure that the cost is always less than the price, don't we? Now, you don't want to have a product that the cost exceeds the price, otherwise you're going out of business pretty soon. So we're going to add this compare decimal less than, name of list price, and then our error message that will be displayed. So let's go back to our program.cs, place this one. On lines 13 and 14, you can see the standard cost is greater than the list price. So we run this, and we can see the cost must be less than the price. In this lesson, we saw that you can create classes to compare two property values to one another. We do this by using reflection. I have many full-length courses on my YouTube channel. C# fundamentals, object-oriented programming, minimal web API development using MVC, start and run a successful business, and lots more coming. Please subscribe to my channel, Paul D. Sheriff. In this course, we saw the many different data annotations that are built into .NET. They help you validate data without writing a lot of code. You saw that we could customize the error message, even putting in placeholders. We can build our own custom validators as well. Well, thank you for attending, and I hope you all enjoyed this course. Please check out my other courses on YouTube as well.